I've learned, with the benefit of hindsight, that you rarely spot the moments that change everything while you're living them. Life slides forward in small ways, one invitation, one decision to say yes instead of no, and only later, when you're piecing together the wreckage or the wonder, do you see the shape of it all. If you'd told me that a rainy Friday in Portland would mark the first page of a story I'd never really be able to close, I would have laughed, or shrugged, or simply gone home early, as I'd planned. Instead, Ben's text buzzed through as I was shutting down my computer at the office, the sky already gray and wet outside. Happy hour at Cloudline. I'm not taking no for an answer. It's Friday, don't make me come drag you out. I could have ignored him, but something in his persistence, or maybe in the humdrum heaviness of another solo weekend, nudged me out of my chair. The air was thick with the smell of wet pavement and tacos from the trucks lining the curb. Cloudline sat atop an old warehouse, its patio glowing with string lights and the kind of Edison bulbs that cast everything in a golden haze. I found Ben near the bar, already halfway through a pint, talking to Tracy, her voice easy, bright as always. I ordered an IPA and, before I could say more than a quick hello, Tracy waved someone over. Sam, over here. That was my first real look at her. Samantha Brooks, Sam, waltzed in like she'd owned the place forever, dark hair pulled into a messy bun, a splash of rain on her jacket, her cheeks pink from the cold. She grinned at Tracy, laughed at something Ben said, and then turned to me with a sudden, appraising smile. You're Ethan, right? Ben's friend who never shows up to anything? Her tone was teasing but not unkind. I shrugged, smiling back. Guilty as charged. She thrust out a hand. Her grip was strong, sure. Well, tonight's the night. You're officially here. If someone had filmed those next few hours, it might have looked unremarkable, the clink of pint glasses, the hum of a live band warming up in the corner, small talk about the city, the weather, the latest local scandal. But with Sam there, everything felt dialed up, sharper, brighter. She coaxed us all onto the rooftop, even as rain started to fall in a steady, silvery sheet. Come on. It's only water. There's a certain magic to Portland rain. It softens the edges of the world, makes the streets shine, pulls strangers together under awnings and bus stops. On that rooftop, laughing and soaked, Sam danced alone for a minute, hair sticking to her forehead, then spun Tracy in a clumsy waltz. Ben joined in, singing off-key to whatever song the band was mangling below us. For a while, I hung back, smiling, dry, and separate. But Sam caught my eye. Don't be shy, Ethan. You're not made of sugar. So I joined them, awkward at first, letting the music and the rain loosen something in me. The city spun in neon and silver. Sam's laughter was louder than the thunder in the distance. When she danced, she closed her eyes, arms up, like she belonged to the weather itself. Later, after Ben and Tracy begged off, early meetings. Tracy said, and Ben grinned, not fooling anyone. Sam lingered, her energy gentler now but just as magnetic. Walk with me? She asked. We wandered down the side streets, sharing a paper tray of tacos and stories about high school bands, favorite hiking trails, movies that made us cry. Sam was open in a way I wasn't used to, telling me about her mom's obsession with gardening, her own habit of picking up houseplants she'd inevitably kill, the time she'd tried stand-up comedy and bombed so badly she almost left town. I told her about growing up in the suburbs, my own quieter parents, the comfort I found in routines, how I'd never really learned to love the rain until I moved to Portland. She bumped my shoulder with hers. That's the trick here. You can't fight the weather. You have to let it in. She stopped beneath a street lamp, rain spangling her hair like tiny stars. Okay, she grinned, serious question. When was the last time you spun in the rain? I laughed. Never? She raised an eyebrow. Not even as a kid? Maybe once. I don't remember. That settles it. Tonight's the night. She took my hand and pulled me into the circle of light. Spin with me. Come on, no one's watching. It felt ridiculous and freeing at the same time, the sort of thing I'd always admired in other people but rarely let myself do. My shoes slipped on the wet pavement, but Sam's grip was steady, her laughter warm as sunlight. For a minute, I forgot the weight of adulthood, forgot to be cautious. I spun until the city blurred and the world felt new. When we stopped, I was breathless and smiling like a fool. Sam looked at me, eyes sparkling, rain on her lashes. See? That's living. We walked some more, slowing as we neared the streetcar stop. Sam leaned against a mural, pulling her jacket tight, shivering. You're not what I expected, she said softly. Is that good or bad? She grinned. I'll let you know. She didn't ask for my number, she handed me her phone and told me to put it in myself. Then, as the streetcar rumbled up, she stepped close, pressed a quick kiss to my cheek, and hopped aboard, waving from the window. I stood in the rain a little longer, heart pounding, unsure if I'd ever see her again or if this was just another one-night magic moment. The streetlights flickered on, painting everything golden gray. Looking back, I realized that ordinary, wet Friday didn't just change my weekend, it changed the course of years. But at the time, it was just a night, just a girl, just the rain. What I didn't know was how often I'd look back on that night, trying to pinpoint the moment something so beautiful started, and, maybe, when it first began to slip away. It's funny how quickly a season can change, not just on the calendar, but in the heart. With Sam, the world felt suddenly new, Portland's constant drizzle softening into sunlight. We moved through the summer as if the rules of time no longer applied to us. Every weekend was an adventure, hiking the mossy trails of Forest Park, where sunlight filtered green through the canopy, or biking along the river, Sam's laughter echoing off the water. On Saturdays, we wandered the farmer's market, sampling local berries and swapping opinions on which food cart made the best breakfast burrito. Sam always seemed to know everyone. She greeted the florist by name, chatted with the mushroom guy, hugged an old roommate she spotted in line for coffee. I admired how easily she slipped into people's lives, how open she was to the city's chaos and color. Sam's apartment was a jungle of green, plants everywhere, in windows and along shelves, even hanging from the shower rod. There were stacks of cookbooks she almost never used, piles of books with worn covers, and photos of friends crowding every available surface. I found comfort in the mess, in her habit of making tea and forgetting about it until it went cold, in the way she left a single light on in every room, claiming she liked a house that glows. We spent lazy Sunday mornings at the diner on 32nd, sharing pancakes and people watching. Sam had a way of asking questions that made strangers open up. By the end of a meal, she knew the server's dog's name, the cook's favorite soccer team. Me, I was content to listen, to watch the way she filled a room with warmth. The first time I met Jade and Ava, it was at Sam's insistence. If you're going to be in my life, you have to meet my people, she said, pushing a basket of croissants across her kitchen counter. Jade arrived first, a flash of energy, hair dyed neon pink, tattoos spiraling up her forearms. She hugged Sam tight and gave me a look that seemed to weigh and measure me all at once. So you're the guy, she grinned. Let's see if you survive brunch with us. Ava was quieter, thoughtful, with a dry wit that I immediately appreciated. Over coffee, the three of them slipped into a rhythm of jokes and half-finished stories. Jade's presence was magnetic, a little dangerous. She poked fun at everything, especially Sam's new domesticated life. Don't let her get too boring, Ethan, Jade warned, winking. I'm counting on you. That summer was a mosaic of bright mornings, soft nights, and new patterns. I learned to love Sam's impulsive side, even when it left me reeling. She'd call me after work and suggest an impromptu trip to the coast, or drag me to a pop-up art show in an alleyway. I found myself saying yes more often, trying to match her pace. But cracks appeared, small and easily dismissed. Sam had a restlessness I struggled to understand. One evening, after a hike, I watched her linger at the edge of the overlook, silent and far away. When I asked if she was okay, she squeezed my hand and said, "Just making sure I don't miss anything." The Brooks family barbecue was a lesson in tradition. Sam's parents, Linda and Robert, lived in a tidy ranch house on the edge of the city. The backyard was immaculate, roses pruned and a new flag flying above the porch. Linda greeted me with a polite smile, Robert with a handshake that lingered a bit too long. The afternoon was filled with grilled chicken, potato salad, and careful questions. Linda asked about my family, my job, whether I attended church. Robert wanted to know if I could handle a real commitment. Sam bounced between us, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. I could see her frustration at her mother's fussing, her father's formality. As the sun dipped behind the fence, Sam caught my eye and mouthed, "Sorry." I squeezed her hand under the table, trying to say it didn't matter. But after that day, I noticed how Sam seemed to pull away from her parents, how she'd roll her eyes at their texts, how she bristled at any mention of tradition or plans. The contrast between her wildness and their order became sharper. Jade's influence loomed larger as summer faded into fall. One Thursday, Jade burst into Sam's apartment with a wild grin. "Girls' weekend at Cannon Beach. No men, no rules. Sam, you're coming. Ava, too." Sam was instantly excited. "Can you get off work?" she asked me. I shook my head, deadlines piling up. "It's fine," I said, trying to sound casual. "You should go, have fun." She hugged me tight, her hair smelling of citrus and rain. "Promise you'll survive without me?" "Barely," I teased. That weekend, the apartment was too quiet. I tried to focus on work, cooked myself dinner, read a book, but found myself wondering what they were doing. When Sam returned, she was electric, sunburned, full of stories about skinny dipping at midnight, late-night karaoke, a bonfire on the beach. I smiled, listened, told myself not to feel left out. She leaned into me, laughing, "Don't worry, nothing scandalous. Just Jade being Jade." But late one night, as I got ready for bed, I overheard Sam on the phone with Jade. Their voices were low, half laughing, half serious. "You know the rules don't apply out there," Jade said, her tone sly. Sam laughed. "No kidding. Sometimes I think I need a little more coastline in my life." I stood in the hallway, suddenly cold. That was the first time I wondered if I could really keep up with Sam, if my steadiness was comfort or constraint. Looking back, I can see it so clearly now, that subtle shift, the way I started to watch us from the outside, as if I were already a spectator in my own life. The city outside our window kept on raining, the world kept spinning, but something in me had begun to drift. There's a strange kind of courage in asking someone to marry you. You hope it's enough to build a life, but maybe it's only enough to take the leap. Looking back, I think my proposal was as much about fear as it was about love, the fear of losing something too bright to hold, the hope that a promise might keep us from drifting apart. The winter of 2023 arrived with snow that clung to tree branches and softened the world outside our apartment windows. Sam was at her best in winter. She'd pull me outside for nighttime walks, our breath making little clouds in the cold, insisting we look for constellations or listen for owls in Forest Park. But that weekend, I had something bigger planned. Ben helped me pack the car, tossing snacks and a spare pair of gloves into the back seat. "You look nervous, man," he said, grinning. "Just excited," I lied, glancing at the small velvet box hidden deep in my coat pocket. Sam bounced out of the building with a thermos of coffee and a bright blue scarf wrapped 3 times around her neck. "Let's go. I want to see snow angels and Coco, not traffic." The drive to Mount had felt like a postcard, pine trees heavy with snow, mountains blurred in white. Sam kept fiddling with the radio, switching from old love songs to local news to static, never settling for long. When we pulled into the trailhead, she hopped out, cheeks already pink from cold and excitement. Our hike wound through silent woods, boots crunching over fresh snow. Sam made snowballs, tried to stuff one down the back of my jacket, then stopped short when we reached the overlook I'd picked out, icy branches framing a view of the valley, sunlight just catching the distant peaks. "Wow," she breathed, arms crossed against the wind. I knelt in the snow, heart in my throat, and tried to find my words. "Sam," I said, "there's no one else I want to get lost with." She stared at me, eyes wide, tears glinting before I even opened the box. "Are you serious?" I nodded, hands shaking. "Will you marry me?" She let out a sound, half sob, half laugh, and flung herself at me, nearly knocking us both into a drift. "Yes. Yes, of course." For a moment, the world was nothing but snow and sunlight, her breath on my cheek, the weight of that new word between us. We drove back down the mountain in a blur of radio static and warmth, Sam calling Tracy, Ava, even her mom before we reached cell service. By the time we got home, congratulations were pouring in, and our phones wouldn't stop buzzing. The following week was a whirlwind of dinners, hugs, and overlapping voices. My parents called from Arizona, teary and delighted. Sam's parents, Linda and Robert, insisted we come for a proper family dinner to celebrate. Their house looked different in winter, all twinkling lights and candles. Linda hugged Sam tightly, then turned to me with a kind of measured approval I hadn't seen before. "Welcome to the family, Ethan. We do things a certain way, but I'm sure you'll get used to it." Robert poured drinks for everyone, made a toast about new beginnings that felt more like a challenge than a blessing. I caught Sam's hand under the table, squeezing it for reassurance. It wasn't long before Linda started in on the details. "I have a friend who does calligraphy. We should get the invitations out early, people have summer plans. Have you decided on colors? The Brookside is large, so we'll need at least 2 extra tables." Sam's smile grew thinner with every suggestion. "Let's just enjoy tonight, Mom," she said, but Linda pressed on. A few days later, our apartment filled with post-its and lists, guests, venues, cake tastings. The joy of being engaged began to tangle with the weight of expectations. It all came to a head over something as trivial as the guest list. "I don't want 200 people there," Sam snapped, pacing the kitchen. "It's supposed to be about us, not every distant cousin and coworker you barely know." I tried to be reasonable, but heard my own voice growing sharper. "Your mom wants to help. She means well. Of course you'd say that. You always want to please everyone. This is our wedding, Ethan." She grabbed her coat and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. I stood for a long time in the quiet that followed, heart pounding, anger mixing with something like grief. Ben called later, and I told him what happened. He listened, then said, "First real fight, huh? That's how you know it's real. Don't let the planning ruin the reason you're doing this." Sam came home late, eyes red but her tone softer. "I'm sorry," she said, voice small. "It's just. It all feels so big. I wanted a wedding, but not all this pressure. I hugged her, pressing my cheek to her hair. We'll figure it out. We're in this together. But something had shifted. The engagement dinner with her family felt tense, laughter a little too loud, silences a little too long. Linda steered every conversation back to wedding details. Robert asked about finances, about long-term goals. Sam leaned into every joke, every toast, like she was trying to prove a point, her smile just a shade too bright. I watched her that night, surrounded by people who loved us but didn't really know us, and wondered if I was the only one who could feel the strain beneath all the celebration. There's an old saying my father likes, sometimes the quietest rooms are the ones with the most to say. As the night wore on, I found myself searching Sam's face for some sign that this was still our story, not just a part we were being asked to play. And as the laughter echoed down the hall and the snow kept falling outside, I wondered if we were both pretending it was all perfect, hoping that if we smiled enough, no one would notice the cracks forming beneath our feet. There's a certain wildness in people that only comes out when they think no one's really looking. I saw flashes of it in Sam throughout our time together, those moments when she'd slip away from the world's expectations and let something untamed break through. That spring, with our wedding looming and the city washed clean by 1,000 April rains, that wildness seemed to bubble closer to the surface every day. Wedding planning had become its own living creature in our apartment. Linda, relentless in her pursuit of a proper celebration, called Sam nightly to debate linen colors and seating charts. Sam, already juggling her job and the last details of her lease, rolled her eyes and found new ways to avoid her mother's calls, ducking out for walks in the rain, pretending to lose her phone, switching topics in the middle of conversations. Still, there was one tradition Sam didn't resist, the Bachelorette party. Maybe it was the promise of escape, or just Jade's contagious energy, but the idea caught hold of her like a fever. Our group chats went from mundane "who's bringing what to the shower" to Jade's gleeful scheming. "We're not doing the usual dinner and drinks nonsense," she typed one night. "This is Portland. It needs to be epic." Sam grinned as she read Jade's texts aloud, kicking her feet up on our coffee table. "She says we need costumes, a karaoke bar, and at least 3 places that serve something on fire. Isn't that a little much?" I asked, not really sure what the boundaries were for these things. Sam shrugged, her eyes bright. "You only get one last night out, right? Besides, Jade loves this stuff." Ava chimed in, suggesting a low-key wine night instead, but Jade wouldn't hear of it. "Live a little, Ava. We'll send you home by midnight if you can't keep up." I watched the messages scroll by, feeling both amused and uneasy. Sam's phone buzzed constantly, and she kept it locked with a new code, tucking it under pillows or into her bag as soon as a message came in. I tried not to let it bother me. She deserved fun, a break from the endless parade of wedding chores. But there was a secretive undercurrent in the way the group spoke, a series of inside jokes I couldn't quite parse. At home, Sam grew more restless. She bought a sequin dress she'd never wear anywhere else and let Jade drop off a bag of party props, tiaras, sashes, even a handful of glow-in-the-dark shot glasses. She hid the bag in the back of her closet, away from Linda's prying eyes. Linda, for her part, kept calling to confirm everything from flower arrangements to which relatives would sit with whom at the rehearsal dinner. "These things matter, Samantha," she insisted, her tone clipped over speakerphone. "Your grandmother will be heartbroken if she's not at the family table." Sam would cover the mouthpiece and roll her eyes. "I swear, Ethan, this wedding is going to kill me before I even make it down the aisle." But as the party approached, it was Tracy who pulled me aside at the corner cafe we sometimes used as a second living room. She stirred her coffee for too long, eyes darting to the door. "You okay with all this?" she asked, voice low. "With what?" "The party?" she nodded, biting her lip. Jade's got big plans. Sam's excited, but I don't know. Sometimes I think Jade pushes too hard. I just hope nobody gets hurt, you know? I tried to brush off the worry. Sam can handle herself. She's not a kid. Tracy wasn't convinced. Still, it feels like we're all being swept up in something bigger than us. I wanted to ask her more, but just then Sam showed up, laughter in her voice, and the moment slipped away. In the days leading up to the party, Sam was a blur, working late, running errands, whispering with Jade on the phone. The apartment filled with little clues, glittery gift bags, a stack of disposable cameras, a playlist titled Last Fling. Every time I tried to talk about it, Sam would brush me off with a laugh and a kiss. Relax, she'd say. You get your bachelor night, too. The night before, as rain tapped against the window and the city glowed in neon and street lamp gold, Sam curled up beside me on the couch. She was buzzing with nervous energy, flipping through her phone, occasionally glancing my way with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You sure you're okay? I asked, softer than I meant to. She looked up, surprised. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I shrugged, feeling foolish. It just feels like a lot. The wedding, your mom, Jade. She cut me off with a kiss, her hand cool against my cheek. Trust me, Ethan. It'll all be fine. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Maybe I just didn't want to see what was already changing, or maybe I was too much in love to read the signs. Outside, the rain kept falling, steady, secret, washing the city clean. And somewhere inside all that noise and hope and anticipation, I told myself this was how it was supposed to feel, wild, unpredictable, full of life. Even if some part of me already knew it was about to slip out of my hands. Betrayal isn't always grand or obvious. Sometimes it arrives quietly, tucked inside the ordinary, a ribboned gift bag, the hum of the fridge, the rain at the window. If I'd worked late that night as planned, I would have missed the package entirely. Maybe that would have bought me a few more days of ignorance, but I doubt it would have changed the ending. It was a Thursday evening, the sky pressed low and heavy, Portland's familiar June drizzle running in sheets down the window. I'd left the office early, feeling restless, wanting to surprise Sam with dinner. Our apartment complex was quiet, the hallways echoing with the sound of distant televisions. As I reached our door, I saw it, a sparkly gift bag sitting right on the mat, glitter catching what little light filtered from the hallway lamp. A glittery tag read, "To the wildest bride, you deserved every second of it. Love, Jade." I frowned, unsure whether to smile or worry. Jade's idea of fun often straddled the line between hilarious and reckless. I set the bag on the kitchen counter, wiping rain from my jacket. For a while, I moved around it, unpacking groceries, washing my hands, the whole time feeling its silent presence tug at me. Eventually, curiosity won. It's just a party favor bag, I told myself, more to fill the silence than out of conviction. Inside, I found the usual, plastic tiara, bride's last ride sash, tiny tubes of glitter, a few novelty shot glasses. Then, at the bottom, a balled-up pair of men's boxers, distinctly not fresh, and a flash drive wrapped in tissue. Something in me recoiled, my mind scrambling for a rational explanation, a prank, a joke, something Jade would laugh about at brunch. I held the boxers at arm's length, dropped them back into the bag, and stared at the flash drive. It was cheap, pink, one of those promotional ones you get at trade shows. I nearly put it back, telling myself it was none of my business, but the doubt gnawed at me. I slipped it into my laptop and waited. The video started with club lights, laughter, Sam's friends in a booth, confetti in the air. There was Sam, wearing the tiara, cheeks flushed, a sash slung across her chest. Her energy was turned up to 11, her laughter just a little too loud. At first, I let myself relax. She was dancing, being silly, nothing I hadn't seen before. Then the video shifted. A stripper on stage, Jade's voice whooping encouragement. Sam, arms around his neck, grinding as the crowd cheered. My heart pounded, but I told myself not to jump to conclusions. It's a party. It's just for show. But it didn't stop. The camera followed as Sam pulled the dancer into a darkened corner. There were kisses, more shots, laughter that didn't sound like hers. The next scene, Sam, alone with 3 men, drinks in hand, voices muffled by music. One of them leaned in, she met him halfway. Another joined. They were touching her, and she let them. The final clip was short and grainy, a door closing behind them as Jade's voice giggled, "Go get em, bride." I froze, my hand clamped over my mouth, a buzzing in my ears. I replayed the footage, as if willing it to change, but the truth only deepened. The woman on that screen was Sam, my Sam, the person I'd trusted with every part of myself. Yet she was a stranger, someone I didn't recognize, someone I'd never imagined existed. It's strange, the things you notice when your world falls apart. The gentle tap of rain at the window. The hum of the refrigerator. My own breath, shallow and ragged. I didn't move. The kitchen clock ticked, cars hissed past on wet pavement below. I could hear the neighbors' laughter through the wall, muffled and distant, a different world entirely. Sam came home hours later, bursting through the door, umbrella dripping onto the mat. She tossed her bag onto the chair and wrapped her arms around me, pressing a cold kiss to my cheek. "You're home early." I was thinking of picking up takeout but decided to walk instead. Smelled the rain and couldn't resist. I nodded, words caught in my throat. I moved through the motions of dinner, warming leftovers, setting the table, pouring glasses of water, my mind replaying every frame from the video. Sam chatted about wedding favors, how Jade was out of control as usual, how Tracy kept worrying over the playlist. I answered where I had to, smiled where I could, and said nothing more. After dinner, she went to the bathroom to brush her teeth, humming a song from her childhood. The sound felt impossibly distant. I stared out the window, watching the streetlights flicker on, one by one, casting golden halos onto the rain-slick pavement. My reflection in the glass looked older, tired, hollowed out by something I couldn't yet name. Later, Sam crawled into bed beside me, her hair damp from a shower, her back turned as she scrolled through her phone. I lay on my side, unmoving, listening to the gentle rhythm of her breathing, the familiar creak of the bed frame, the rain's steady whisper against the window. That was the moment I knew, with a clarity sharper than heartbreak itself, that my life with Sam had ended the instant I pressed play. I was still there, sharing her bed, her food, her secrets. But the thread between us had snapped, quietly, invisibly, and nothing would ever tie us together the same way again. I went to bed that night knowing I'd never truly sleep beside her again, no matter how many times I'd close my eyes and try to dream it all back. Some goodbyes make noise, doors slamming, voices raised, promises shattered in the open. But some unfold quietly, invisible to the world, ending long before anyone packs a bag or walks away. My mom once told me, when trust is broken, it's the quiet that hurts most. She was right. The loudest moment of my life was the hush that settled in my chest the morning I left Sam. Dawn in Portland is always slow, the light arriving reluctantly behind clouds. I woke before the sun, heart pounding, every sense on high alert, as if some part of me still hoped I'd snap awake and find it all a dream. But the rain on the window, the ache in my chest, the hollow quiet of our apartment, all of it was real. I moved carefully, trying not to disturb anything, though I knew Sam wouldn't wake for hours. The apartment looked almost peaceful. Her shoes by the door, the kitchen towel she always left in a heap on the counter, the scent of her shampoo lingering in the hallway. I packed only what I needed: clothes, laptop, the book I'd been pretending to read, my journal, a charger. Everything else could stay. I didn't want to touch the wedding invitations stacked on the table or the framed photo from Mount Hood, half buried under a pile of mail. I left a note. I kept it short, the way you do when the words are too heavy to hold. Sam. I can't do this anymore. Please don't call. E. I set it on her pillow and took one last look around, letting my eyes rest on the empty spaces between all we'd collected together. Then I slipped out, closing the door with a soft click that echoed down the hallway. Outside, the city was still asleep, shrouded in a gentle drizzle that softened the world's edges. I walked to the corner, my duffel over my shoulder, and called an Uber. The driver didn't say much, just nodded when I gave the address, a lakeside cabin 2 hours out of town. I watched the city slide past, neon signs blinking off as the sun tried to rise. My phone buzzed, but I didn't check it. I already knew who it was. As we left Portland behind, I scrolled through my contacts and tapped on Mom. It rang twice before she answered, voice thick with sleep. Ethan? Is everything all right? My throat tightened. Not really, Mom. I'm leaving Sam. I'm okay, just needed to go. She was silent for a moment, and I heard my father's low murmur in the background. Come home if you want. Or don't. Whatever you need. We're here. Do you want to talk about it? I shook my head, though she couldn't see me. Not now. Just, thank you. You don't have to explain anything, sweetheart. Sometimes the right thing is the hardest. I swallowed hard. Love you, Mom. Love you more, Ethan. Call us when you're ready. I hung up, feeling a little lighter and a little lonelier all at once. By the time we reached the cabin, the rain had picked up, making the lake beyond the porch a gray mirror broken by ripples. The host handed me a set of keys and a map, smiling gently, as if she could see the sadness I carried. The place was simple: a bed, a kitchenette, a battered armchair facing the water, and a coffee pot that burbled when I plugged it in. I set my bag down and made coffee, standing at the window as steam rose from the mug. The silence was nearly complete, broken only by the patter of rain and the occasional call of a distant bird. I pressed my forehead to the glass, eyes burning, willing myself to feel something other than emptiness. I tried to distract myself, sorted through emails, canceled wedding vendors one by one, forwarded all calls to voicemail. I ignored the flood of texts that filled my notifications: Sam's name, Linda's, numbers I didn't recognize. My hands shook as I worked, each message a reminder of the life I'd just stepped out of. At noon, I sat down with my journal, staring at the first blank page for a long time. Eventually I wrote, Day 1. Alone, but alive. The words looked strange, disconnected from the person I'd been even yesterday. I let the pen hover, then scribbled out the line and started again, telling myself it was okay not to have answers yet. As the day stretched on, I wandered the shore, let the rain soak through my jacket, picked up stones and tossed them into the lake. The grief arrived slowly, like the tide, lapping at my edges until I was flooded with it: memories of Sam's laugh, our first hike, the wedding we'd never have, the life we'd planned out in hopeful sketches on napkins and notebooks. When I returned to the cabin, I did the hardest thing. I took out my phone and scrolled through every photo of Sam: trips, birthdays, blurry selfies in the rain. One by one, I deleted them, pausing sometimes to let the ache settle. Each deletion felt final, a small goodbye stitched to a bigger one. I sat by the window until evening, the rain never letting up, the lake a flat, silver coin beneath the sky. I watched my reflection in the glass, thinner now, changed. I wondered if the sound of rain would ever remind me of anything but loss. Maybe someday, the quiet would be less sharp. Maybe the rain would carry something softer. For now, all I had was the steady rhythm on the roof, a mug of cooling coffee, and the ache of having left without goodbye. And somewhere in that hush, I let myself grieve, for Sam, for the life we lost, for the man I'd been before the world turned silent. News in Portland travels on 100 rivers, word of mouth, text threads, chance encounters in line for coffee. But nothing moves faster than a secret, especially when it comes wrapped in sudden silence. It wasn't long before mine and Sam's absence rippled outward, reaching every corner of the life we'd built. The lakeside cabin offered its own kind of hush. I moved through its small spaces quietly, brewing coffee that I rarely finished, letting half-eaten breakfasts grow cold. My phone stayed on Do Not Disturb, flipped face down on the windowsill, its only company the sound of rain tapping gently on the glass. Still, I couldn't escape the constant vibration, the buzz of messages stacking up, a symphony of pain waiting for a response. In the city, summer pressed on. Street fairs bloomed, farmers' markets filled with berries and tulips, the Starlight Parade wound its way through downtown. I imagined Sam there, head thrown back in laughter, or Jade leading a chorus of cheers. But the city moved on without me, and I was stuck on the outside, as if exile had taken on a physical form. From time to time, I glimpsed the world I'd left behind. A quick scroll through notifications would show a digital map of disaster. Sam, please. Just talk to me. I need to understand. Ethan, I'm sorry. Please let me explain. Tracy, is Sam okay? Are you okay? What is happening? Jade, what did you do? Why are you ghosting everyone? Ben, hey man. Just checking in. No judgment, but people are worried. Ava, I'm not getting involved, but you both deserve better than this. Most messages went unread, but the volume itself said enough. Linda and Robert called almost every day. Linda left voicemails, her voice tight with panic. We just want to know Sam is safe. Please, Ethan, call us back. We don't understand what's happening. I finally replied with a single text, I'm okay. Sam's safe. Nothing more. Sam's attempts were the hardest to ignore. Her messages ranged from pleading to angry to numb, cycling through apology, accusation, then back again. You can't just leave me in the dark like this. Please, Ethan, tell me what happened. Tell me what I did. I read those late at night, the rain drumming a slow tattoo on the cabin roof. I could hear her voice in my mind, but I didn't answer. Some wounds aren't ready for words. Meanwhile, the group chat, once a constant hum of memes, dinner invites, and plans, fractured under the weight of the unknown. Tracy and Ava demanded answers, pressing Sam for an explanation. Jade grew defensive, lashing out at anyone who questioned her version of events. Ben tried to stay neutral, replying less and less until his name vanished from the conversation altogether. I drifted through my days, watching the lake and clouds change shape, the world refusing to wait for me. Sometimes, I'd walk the trails around the cabin, listening to the wind and the far-off laughter from summer camps. I ignored every invite to brunch, every plea for an explanation. I left my coffee cold on the table, my phone untouched for hours. But Tracy refused to let go. I could tell from her messages, each one more frantic than the last, then suddenly silent for a few days. Then, late one evening as the light faded and the lake turned to glass, my phone rang. Not a text this time, but a call, Tracy's name lighting up the screen. I hesitated before answering, dread settling in my chest. Her voice was raw, trembling. "Ethan, I need you to tell me the truth. Please." Sam's a wreck, Jade's in denial, and nobody's talking to each other. I need to know what happened. I deserve to know. I took a long breath, the silence on my end as heavy as the rain outside. "Check your inbox," I said, my voice flat. After we hung up, I sent her the video, no explanations, no warnings. Just the raw, ugly truth. I watched the message go out, then set the phone face down again, closing my eyes as the room seemed to shrink around me. Minutes passed. The phone stayed silent. The air in the cabin thickened with things unsaid, regrets piled high as the rain against the roof. Outside, the world kept moving, music from a distant picnic, laughter echoing from the lake's far shore. Some bridges, I've learned, are meant to burn. Maybe not with anger, but with necessity, the kind of fire that clears a path for something new to grow. There's a freedom in it, a pain too, but more than anything, a finality. As I made my way through a drizzle-soaked Portland afternoon to a trendy cafe downtown, I knew I was ready to let the match fall. The cafe buzzed with the soft hum of indie music, rain tracing patterns down the big front windows. The barista wore a sleeve of wildflower tattoos and called out drink orders with cheerful efficiency. Vegan muffins and artisan lattes lined the pastry case, and everything smelled like cardamom and hope. The place was usually a comfort, but today, it felt like a stage set for a play that had already lost its audience. Tracy and Ava had arranged the meeting, insisting that the group needed to clear the air. I arrived first, nerves buzzing. Tracy was already seated at the window, twisting a napkin in her lap, her eyes rimmed with fatigue. Ava came next, her face set with quiet resolve. Ben slid in silently, nodding to each of us but keeping his distance, his body angled toward the door. Jade arrived late, sunglasses perched atop her head despite the gray sky, her arrival marked by a gust of damp air and a nervous laugh. She ordered a double espresso, then sauntered over, tossing her bag onto an empty chair. "So, what's this? Group therapy?" No one laughed. Silence ballooned between us, thick and awkward. I broke it. "You know why we're here." Jade rolled her eyes. "Look, I know everyone's upset, but this is getting out of hand. It was just a party, Sam wanted to cut loose, and everyone had fun. Why are we making it into some moral crisis?" Ava's voice was tight. "Because Sam's not okay. None of us are." Tracy stared at the table. "There's fallout, Jade. You can't pretend nothing happened." Jade let out a sharp breath. "I didn't force anyone to do anything. Sam made her choices. She always does." I felt anger rise, slow and steady. "You encouraged her, over and over. You called it tradition. You filmed it, laughed about it, sent that package to our apartment like it was a trophy. You made it easy for her to be reckless." Jade's jaw set. "Don't blame me because your relationship couldn't survive a little chaos. Sam was bored, Ethan. You were the one playing it safe." Ben cleared his throat, finally speaking up. "That's not fair, Jade. You pushed, and you know it. And when things went south, you ducked out and let Sam take the fall." For a second, Jade looked genuinely hurt. "You're all turning on me? After everything we've been through?" Ava shook her head. "We're not turning on anyone. We're just not pretending anymore. I saw this coming, but I kept quiet. That's on me." Old grievances surfaced, missed birthdays, secrets whispered behind backs, years of envy and one-upmanship. Tracy, voice trembling, admitted she'd always felt left out, never quite enough for the group. Ben confessed that he'd stayed on the sidelines too long, afraid to pick a side. Jade's mask slipped. I just wanted us to have fun. I thought that's what we were good at. I looked at her, really looked, the bravado, the hurt, the loneliness beneath. Maybe we were. But that's not enough anymore. We hurt each other, Jade. You hurt Sam. And I can't be part of this, not anymore. I stood, the chair scraping against the tile, feeling the weight of years falling away. This is it for me. I'm done. Ava nodded, her eyes shining with something like relief. Me too. Tracy reached for my hand, squeezing it once before letting go. Take care, Ethan. Ben just gave a sad half-smile. See you around, man. Jade's eyes flashed, her voice breaking. So that's it? We just end? I met her gaze. Sometimes you have to burn the bridge behind you, so you can finally move forward. The rain had picked up, drumming against the glass like applause. As I stepped outside, the air felt cleaner, my chest lighter than it had in months. Portland's rain, for the first time, didn't sting, it felt like a kind of blessing, washing away what needed to be left behind. I walked through the puddles, letting the city swallow the echo of my footsteps, knowing I would never return to that table or those friendships again. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. There's no hiding from the truth when it finally comes home to roost. For weeks, I'd avoided confrontation, telling myself it wasn't my place to upend someone else's world. But the truth, like water, finds its level, it seeps through cracks, pulls at your feet, and eventually demands to be acknowledged. That Saturday, I found myself driving through Portland's leafy West Hills, the car winding through streets lined with manicured hedges and towering maples, headed for the Brooks family home. Linda always kept her garden immaculate. Roses the size of teacups, borders trimmed with military precision, not a weed in sight. As I parked, I saw her out front, hose in hand, watering the beds with brisk, practiced motions. She looked up, a wary smile blooming when she saw me, though her eyes darted over my shoulder as if expecting someone else. Ethan. We weren't expecting you today. Coffee's fresh, come in, come in. She wiped her hands on her apron, smoothing imaginary wrinkles from her skirt. I followed her inside, passing through a hall crowded with framed family photos, vacations, graduations, holiday dinners, all frozen in cheerful harmony. The living room was full of afternoon light, the windows thrown open to the scent of cut grass. Robert sat in his usual armchair, newspaper folded on his knee. He nodded at me, face unreadable. Didn't know you were coming by, son. I cleared my throat, nerves rattling. I'm sorry to drop in. I need to talk to both of you. It's important. Linda fussed with the coffee pot, pouring 3 cups, setting them on the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she straightened the stack of napkins. Is everything all right? Is Sam? Sam appeared in the doorway, eyes red, arms crossed. She looked smaller somehow, her usual defiance blunted by exhaustion. What are you doing here, Ethan? I set my phone on the table, sliding it toward Linda. I need you to see something. My voice felt distant, like I was speaking for someone else. Linda's hands hovered over the screen, hesitating before she pressed play. Robert leaned in, his face going stone cold as the video rolled, flashes of laughter, wildness, betrayal. Sam's voice, her friends' cheers, the kind of fun that left scars. The silence that followed was unbearable. Linda covered her mouth, eyes filling with tears. Robert's jaw clenched, hands gripping the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles went white. How could you? Linda's voice cracked, barely a whisper. Sam shook her head, voice shaking but defensive. It was just one night. Everyone does it, Jade said, it's tradition. I wasn't thinking, Robert cut her off. Stop. The word landed heavy as a hammer. No more excuses. You're an adult. You make choices. And now you live with them. Sam looked to her mother for rescue, but Linda just stared at the tablecloth, smoothing it with trembling fingers. We raised you to know better, Samantha. We trusted you. Sam's voice grew shrill. I made a mistake. I said I was sorry. What else do you want from me? Linda's eyes glistened as she looked at me. Ethan. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. For her. For all of this. I swallowed, my own voice unsteady. I didn't want to do this. But you needed to know. Robert stood, turning away. Until you take responsibility for your actions, you're on your own. Don't call us for money. Don't come home for a while. His words were measured, but there was no softness left. Sam's tears came then, silent and shuddering, her shoulders shaking as she slid down to the floor by the couch. Linda crossed to her, trying to gather her in her arms, but Sam pushed her away. I lingered in the doorway, unsure if I belonged in that house anymore. My phone buzzed, a message from Ava. You did the right thing, Ethan. Even if it hurts. I stared at the words, wishing I could believe it. Linda followed me to the porch, her face tight with grief. She reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Can you forgive us? For not seeing? For letting it get this far? I shook my head, not out of anger, but simple honesty. There's nothing to forgive. None of us saw what was coming. She nodded, wiping her eyes with the heel of her hand. Take care of yourself, Ethan. That's all I can ask. As I walked down the path, the garden seemed almost too perfect, petals unbruised, no weeds in sight, not a hint of disorder in the beds. Behind me, Sam's sobs echoed faintly, the sound of something breaking that could never quite be put back together. I paused at the gate, looking back at the house I'd nearly called my own. It stood silent, proud, just as polished as the image Linda tried so hard to keep. But I saw it for what it was now, a place where the truth had been pruned away for years, only to come roaring back when no one was ready. As I drove away, I realized the family I'd almost joined was just as broken as mine. In that small recognition, for the first time in weeks, I felt less alone. Sometimes, I thought, it isn't the weeds that ruin a garden, it's pretending they aren't there at all. After the storm, sometimes all you have left is yourself. I never understood what that really meant until the world went quiet around me. No calls from Sam, no laughter in my ears, just the Oregon rain, steady as breath, washing everything down to its foundation. August came with a restless chill, thunder rolling over the lake, the kind of storms that linger for days. The cabin felt smaller than ever, stacks of dishes, half-read books, my journal open to blank pages. I kept writing lines and crossing them out, the words refusing to settle. Some days, I wandered the trails until my legs ached. Others, I stared at the gray water until dusk pressed its face against the window. My phone barely left the charger, but I didn't silence it anymore, no one was calling. I heard about Sam through Ava, whose texts arrived at odd hours. She's not answering anyone. Lost her job at the agency. Her parents cut her off. Tracy moved out. She's crashing with some friend of Jade's, but it's not working out. There was no comfort in knowing she was hurting, too, only a sharp, empty ache that sat beside my coffee every morning. Sam's story filtered back to me in fragments. Her office job slipped away, the HR director sending a terse email, "We regret to inform you." It wasn't just her spotty attendance, but the whispering around the Bachelorette video. Someone in Jade's circle leaked enough details that her name trended locally for a day or two. Portland loves a scandal, and the city is small. She tried for a while, I think, to keep up appearances. Jade vanished, her phone disconnected. Tracy ignored her calls, Ava stayed polite but distant. Sam bounced from couch to couch, clinging to acquaintances who found her too much or too broken. She tried a handful of survival jobs, barista, delivery driver, temp receptionist, but nothing stuck. Linda and Robert left her voicemails about growing up, but never sent help. Eventually, her last roommate asked her to leave, the lease overdue and patience spent. She stuffed her life into trash bags and found a tiny room in a stranger's apartment across the river. I pictured her looking out a rain-streaked window, wishing for a different ending. Meanwhile, I was living in limbo. Most mornings, I made my bed and brewed my own coffee, small victories that felt like rebellion against despair. Ben showed up one Saturday, a box of pastries in hand, his hair flattened by the rain. He stood in the doorway, hesitant. "Place looks lived in," he said, glancing at the clutter. I forced a smile. "I guess it suits me." We ate apple fritters and stared at the water. He tried to coax me out for a run. "Just around the lake, man. Fresh air'll do you good." I shrugged, but put on my sneakers. The run was slow and awkward, my muscles tight, lungs burning with every breath of damp air. But when we finished, I was grateful, if only for the exhaustion that dulled the noise in my head. Ava's texts came steady as rain, "Take care of yourself. You're allowed to rest. Remember to eat." Even the heaviest storms end, eventually. Sometimes she'd send Sam the same reminders, or so she confessed in a late-night message. I imagined us both, awake in the dark, clutching our phones and the scraps of kindness left between us. Some nights, loneliness hit like a sudden wave, sharp and bitter. One evening, I picked up my phone, scrolled to Sam's number, thumb hovering over the call button. My mind filled with old laughter, inside jokes, memories that hurt more now than they ever did in real time. I dialed, held my breath through 2 rings, then hung up before her voice could answer. The silence after was deafening. I tried writing again, pages of half-formed thoughts, admissions I'd never spoken aloud. I deleted more drafts than I kept, but I kept trying. I let myself feel the loss, let it move through me, not around me. Sam's rock bottom arrived on a Tuesday. She was evicted, no warning, just a slip of paper under the door. She called every number in her phone, each one going to voicemail or a polite apology. She dragged her bags to a friend of a friend's basement, her pride gone, her future a haze of temp jobs and bus schedules. I got the news from Ava, she's at her lowest. I wish I could fix it, but maybe this is what she needs. Sometimes you don't change until you lose everything. Standing at the window, rain running down the glass, I wondered what everything really meant. Was it love? A job? The hope that forgiveness was still possible? Or was it just the feeling that someone, somewhere, still cared enough to answer when you called? That night, I made myself dinner, nothing fancy, just eggs and toast, and cleaned up every crumb. It was a small thing, but it mattered. I put the plates away, turned off the lights, and sat on the porch, letting the drizzle mist my face. We both learned, in our own ways, that grief is lonelier when you have no one left to blame. And maybe that's when healing starts, not when the pain disappears, but when you finally stop searching for someone else to carry it for you. Not all healing is loud. Sometimes it moves in quietly, like the slow light of an early fall morning, or the hush of leaves turning gold on the neighborhood trees. My dad used to say, "You'll know you're healing when you care about tomorrow again." For a long time, I doubted I'd ever get there. But as September painted Portland in shades of copper and russet, something in me softened, a quietness that felt almost like peace. It started with small things. I answered my parents' invitation to Sunday dinner for the first time in months. I drove across the city, leaves swirling down quiet streets, the sun low and golden through the windshield. My childhood home looked just as it always had, garden beds overgrown from a summer of neglect, but warm light glowed from the kitchen windows. Inside, the table was set for 3. Mom had roasted chicken with herbs, mashed potatoes, green beans with slivered almonds. Dad carved the bird, his hand steady, and told a story about his own first job, drawing out a laugh I didn't know I still had. Pumpkin pie cooled on the counter, spiced and familiar, the taste of other autumns. I listened, not to fill the silence, but because I wanted to hear it. There was laughter, old stories, the comfort of people who'd always loved me, even in my worst seasons. After dinner, I walked with my mom in the backyard, crisp leaves crunching under our feet. She slipped her arm through mine. "You seem lighter, Ethan. I hope you know how proud we are of you, for coming back, for letting us in." I squeezed her hand. "I'm trying, Mom. That's all I can promise." Back at the cabin, I found myself journaling again, not the frantic scribbles of heartbreak, but thoughtful notes about the sky, the changing air, the neighbor's cat sunning itself on the porch. I volunteered at a local food bank twice a week, filling bags with groceries, chatting with folks who greeted me with easy smiles and stories of their own. There was comfort in routine, in helping strangers, in remembering that everyone is carrying something. Linda sent an email one morning. The subject line was simple, "For Ethan." I almost deleted it, but curiosity nudged me open it. "Dear Ethan, I am so sorry for everything my family put you through. I wish I'd seen the signs sooner and offered you more kindness. Please know you have my respect, and I hope you find peace. Sincerely, Linda Brooks." I sat with her words for a long time. I didn't reply, there was nothing left to say, but I was grateful for the gesture. Sometimes, closure doesn't need conversation, it's enough to know that remorse is real. Ava called on a Thursday night, her voice warm. "There's a group hike in Forest Park on Saturday. You should come. I'll bring pumpkin spice coffee, you bring your new optimism." I laughed. "I'll do my best." We walked among the towering firs, the trail soft underfoot, sun breaking through the mist in golden slants. Ava talked about a new job, Ben texted memes to the group, and for once, there was no mention of Sam. Her absence was felt, but it wasn't sharp anymore, more like a memory that had lost its edge. Sometimes, healing is the space left behind when pain finally moves out. As we climbed the ridge, the rain cleared and a wide sweep of Portland opened below, rooftops shining in the new light. I breathed in deeply, letting the cool air fill my lungs. I realized I hadn't thought about the past in hours. My chest felt open, my thoughts unhurried. Ava snapped a picture, promising to send it later. We grinned like kids at the top of the world. Back at the cabin, I made dinner, roasted squash, simple and sweet, and ate slowly, watching the light fade outside. I wrote another journal entry, this one ending with, "Maybe tomorrow will be even better." For the first time, I meant it. As I got ready for bed, I glanced at my phone. There were no messages from Sam. For weeks, I had feared that silence, but now it felt like healing, the chance to start fresh, to make my own peace. The end of one story is just the start of another, if you let it be. For a long time, I believed heartbreak would be the thing that defined me, the bitter taste in my coffee, the rain tapping at the window, the hollow ache in the spaces Sam used to fill. But seasons turn, light shifts, and loss slowly shapes the edges rather than the center of who you are. By late fall, Portland was a patchwork of golden trees and wet sidewalks, the air full of wood smoke and anticipation. I signed the lease on a new apartment, a small place above a bakery, not much more than a living room, a bedroom, and a narrow kitchen with old checkered tiles. On move-in day, I set a potted fern by the window, started a little coffee corner with my battered French press, and unpacked my books one by one. It felt strange and satisfying to decide what to bring and what to leave behind. I kept volunteering, now at a local shelter that offered hot meals and warm blankets on cold nights. Ben started joining me when he could, always with a new joke or a story about his nephew's soccer games. We ladled soup, handed out fresh socks, and shared quiet, companionable laughs with the folks who passed through. There was no need for heavy conversation, sometimes just showing up, week after week, is what matters. Ava was there, too. She brought reusable grocery bags filled with donated apples and granola bars, a thermos of spiced coffee to share. Community is what you make it, she told me, passing me a steaming cup as we sorted canned goods. That includes you, you know. Some Saturdays, a group from the shelter would organize hikes along the Willamette, and I'd go, not because I felt I had to, but because I wanted to. We'd walk through russet woods, city sounds falling away until all that was left was the crunch of leaves and the quiet shuffle of new friends. I never asked about anyone's past. Nobody asked about mine. Sometimes the deepest healing is found in places where you don't have to explain yourself. Sam became a distant presence, a shadow passing on the other side of the street, a name mentioned quietly at a coffee shop. I never saw her up close, but sometimes I thought I glimpsed her in the flicker of autumn leaves or the hush before rain. There was no anger left, only the echo of what was, and gratitude for what had grown in its place. One Sunday evening, after a long walk and an even longer shower, I sat at my tiny kitchen table and wrote a letter to my future self. Remember the weight you once carried. Remember how you learned to set it down. You don't have to be perfect to be at peace. You just have to be open. Rain tapped on the window as dusk settled over the rooftops. I brewed a cup of coffee and leaned back, letting the warmth of the mug seep into my hands. The city lights flickered on, casting soft gold across the walls. I put on a playlist of old favorites and listened as laughter drifted up from the bakery below. That night, I laughed, deep and genuine, the kind that shakes the last of the dust from your soul. Ben had texted a picture of a badly frosted cake from the shelter. Ava sent a video of a stray cat chasing its tail. I was surrounded by small, imperfect joys, a patchwork of ordinary moments that added up to something extraordinary. I didn't know what would come next. Maybe that was the best part, my story wasn't over, not by a long shot. For the first time in years, I felt ready for whatever waited around the next corner. As the rain fell softly on the glass, I raised my cup to the night. Open roads, new friends, the hope of a life I could finally call my own. I didn't need certainty, just the courage to keep going, step by gentle step. Looking back, I realized that loss doesn't end a story, it quietly opens the door for hope, if you're willing to let it in. Through hardship, I learned that compassion, toward myself and others, matters more than blame, and even broken hearts can become stronger in time. In life, we all stumble, but grace is found in the way we help each other stand again. If this story spoke to you, I invite you to share your own reflections or reach out to someone you care about today. Sometimes, a simple conversation can be the first step toward healing, for any of us.